In the beginning, I was really motivated to set up something on my own. Fortunately, I was in the aeronautic industry and not in textiles or the steel industry or whatever, because I would have been less successful. I was in aeronautics, and so I started a company in the aeronautic industry, which is a sector that has grown considerably in the last few years. Quite naturally, I set up in Figeac because I lived in Figeac. I was working for the Figeac company. Figeac were our first customer. A few weeks after we started, the second was Airbus and the third Figeac Aero. Both companies are in Toulouse, so I was quite well placed in Figeac as it turned out. I started at Figeac Aero in January 1989. There were 10 of us with Mr. Maillard. I had my job interview on the Wednesday and I started at Figeac Aero on the following Monday, so even in those days things went very quickly. I started on the 13th of February 1989. I met Mr. Maillard playing rugby, and we played together for one unforgettable season because we made it to the semi-final of the French Championship 3rd Division. Unfortunately, we lost the semi-final, and the following season we carried on playing together, but he injured his knee. He couldn't stand the pressure. So his rugby days were over, and 18 months later I heard he was setting up his own business. He contacted me, I had an interview and started at Figeac Aero. We were at the Sergier site. It wasn't exactly very comfortable, but we managed anyway. Mr. Maillard really took an active part in the company. He pitched in himself because he would often go off in his old black BMW to fetch parts from the customer, and he would bring them back, we would fit them, and then he'd take them back to the customer again. In the beginning, there were a few misses. We made some good parts, but also some not so good ones. The work was complicated at the time because we didn't have much equipment when we started out. Mr. Maillard had bought some machines that were already quite old, and from a safety point of view, it wasn't obvious. The machines weren't enclosed. All the shavings fell on the floor in front of the machine, and we had to shovel them up with a broom and a shovel. That's how it was. We didn't question it, we knew that's how we worked, and we were okay with that. We saw him regularly because he was always around us. He would give us a hand, even sometimes taking out pallets, wearing Clark's shoes. I must say he was a better salesman than a forklift driver. I started at Figeac Aero in February 1991. Mr. Maillard had ambitious ideas for Figeac Aero. He wanted his company to mean something in the aeronautic industry. We moved in July 1991. Some of our colleagues were already on holiday and had to come back from holiday to help us. There was a mishap, a big mishap. The 3D machine wasn't ready to check a part for an equipment manufacturer in Normandy. So we had to go with Mr. Maillard to a neighbouring factory to check the part. The next day the part was ready and was delivered to the customer. It was a great atmosphere because it was like a family business. It was really friendly. We helped each other. We never left a friend in difficulty. We were always united. We often met up on Saturday mornings because there was already a lot of work in those days. We'd work, but we'd always stop for a bite to eat. Even during the week, we often used to meet up outside working hours. For many, it was their first job to start with. We learned how to get by on our own, because there weren't really the means that there are today. But we had some good times together anyway. We often used to meet up after work for a bit of a night out on the town. I arrived at Figeac Aero in 1992, and I was hired to set up and help develop the technical division. The ambition was to develop high-speed machining in small-sized aluminium aviation parts, which was something that wasn't very well developed in the sector. It really took lots and lots of work, fine-tuning and research to get to where we are today. The customers at the time weren't very keen, because the customers like shell plating. In fact, you can't venture into unknown territory. It is very, very risky. Their reluctance forced us to do a lot of lab tests, and that involved a great deal of working together. To sum up, we could say that to start with, the idea was very utopian, practically unreal. Today the idea has been proven and is now standard practice throughout the world in our domain. I joined the Figeac Aero team in September 2005 as business manager. This job has taught me that it's very important to have team cohesion and a strong team spirit so as to make the connection between all the different stages of the production line. In those days, the atmosphere was very friendly, quite familiar. As business manager, I would even deliver the parts directly to the customers, or put the parts in the back of the car and deliver them during a weekend trip to Toulouse. When I joined the group in 1999 after my final year internship, there were about 100 people in those days. Up until 2011, we produced all our aviation parts in Figeac, and already our customers at the time were pushing us to produce at best cost, and we didn't want to. We pushed back to keep everything in the Figeac area. We had the opportunity of landing a contract in an aviation industry park in Tunisia. It was take it or leave it. This was our first experience in setting up a Figeac Aero subsidiary, and it went rather well. We worked with people who were involved, competent, who had common sense, and the project was a success and an example for future projects. We didn't know at the time, but Tunisia was the beginning of Figeac Aero Group's globalization. When we got there were trucks everywhere, the site was still being built, so we helped each other to set up the machines. The team was a mix of French and Tunisians. We chose a strategy from the start. We functioned as if we were a remote workshop. We didn't think too much. In Tunisia, we duplicated what was in place in Figeac, so as to develop a certain sense of belonging to Figeac Aero Tunisia. That was never written down in black and white, but we operated like that. It's only natural. It was quite difficult because when you're in a country in tumult, there had been a revolution, people were afraid to go to Tunisia. When we started the training missions, people started to change their minds, especially when they found skilled workers of a certain level and things were really starting to gel. Thanks to the success of the Tunisian project, our number one customer at the time, Aerolia, pushed us to set up a company near them in Meolt to build some sub-assemblies that they wanted to outsource. We started production at our customer's site and quickly afterwards set up our 6,000 square meter facility. As in Tunisia, this project set up links with another customer who quickly became our biggest customer and who still is today. The stock exchange listing was in December 2013. Why the stock market launch? Because we have seen very strong growth over these last few years. Strong growth from 2013 till now. We couldn't take on the financial obligation of this growth alone. We needed outside capital, and we don't regret this partnership.
I'm currently the Director of Engineering at Figeac Aero North America. I've been at Figeac, or at that facility, for 12 years now. Figeac for 5 years. Figeac purchased Sonica, our facility, in 2014 of May. And that was a unique transition because we had the French team come over. There was a group of individuals that come over to look at the facility to see if they wanted to purchase it. It was an eye-opening experience for them and for us. Some of the challenges are the time differences. We're only able to work because of the time zones for about 3 or 4 hours in the morning, our time. So that becomes kind of difficult. The other challenges are maybe a little bit of the language barrier. It's more of a challenge for us than it is for them. They're very good at English. We're very poor usually with French. So a couple of the biggest things that have changed for the better have been we've grown. Our company has grown quite a bit here, this division has. So we're not only growing on employee side, but our sales revenue is going up. It was the first time some of the French individuals have seen our culture over here. Our bigger cars, bigger roads, bigger plants.
The first contact between Mr. Maillard and the employees of SN Figeac Aero was quite direct indeed. Mr. Maillard walked to the middle of the workshop, climbed on the marble worktop, and gave quite a direct and frank speech to all the workforce to show them the direction he wanted to take, and that really set the tone of the takeover by Figeac Aero of the Figeac Group. Each entity, Figeac Aero and Figeac Aero, adds something to the other. Figeac Aero brings its know-how and skill in the sectors of sheet metalworking and boiler making, and Figeac Aero on its side brings its know-how on industrial processes and the whole set of support functions which are now shared. Of course, there was a period of uncertainty for all the employees and also for our customers. It's true that what Figeac brought was important for both customers and employees. Figeac reassured the employees in the long term with a strong commitment, especially with a medium-term industrial strategy, with investment in new means of production and new markets which have opened up, which were the positive result of all those efforts, to give people a projection in the medium term with a positive vision. We've reached a critical size which allows us to work with the biggest prime contractors in the world. We have facilities near our customers, best cost facilities. We're also developing our production on the American continent. Figeac Aero's future strategy is to prioritize economic performance in relation to projected expansion. If things change, we will have to adapt, while anyway maintaining our culture and our values. The first image that comes to mind is when I arrived at Mecca Brive to find a team that had suffered a bit, the company in financial difficulty, to be able to back it up with an investment plan, put some sparkle back in the eyes of the employees and the people there. I think that is definitely what has struck me the most in my 8 years at Figeac Aero. Figeac is a group that is growing. It may be a sacrilege to say it, or it may be obvious. For me, it's a lot of adrenaline, and that's what I was looking for when I started this job. Of course, you may think that things will get more and more difficult. When a middle market company reaches 4,000 people, that's it. But there are still lots of possibilities. Based on the experience we now have, we have time to carry on external growth, continue to win markets, and offer this competitiveness to our customers. If we had to sum up what Figeac Aero is today, it has gone from 30 people to 4,000 people in 30 years. It's quite an extraordinary adventure. When you look back in the mirror, you say to yourself it was a long shot, but what we have done is sensational. Working at Figeac Aero is a very enriching professional adventure, career-wise, but it's undoubtedly a great human adventure above all. I honestly didn't think we would grow as much as we have. I am, of course, satisfied with our track record. Satisfied that this venture is a collective experience and not just an individual experience. So it's nice to remind people that although it is my baby, the baby also belongs to a lot of us. There are some anecdotes I can tell, and others I must keep quiet about, even after 30 years. When we started Figeac Aero, the only aeronautical thing we had was the name. We didn't know how to do anything. We were full of goodwill and enthusiasm, but we didn't have a technical culture, and some made fun of us, saying, "They do thermal treatment in the microwave in the canteen." It wasn't really very kind. I thank all the employees who've been with me for 30 years. And I thank all the younger ones joining us. The strength of the company is first and foremost the deal with the employees. I often have the spotlight on me, and people associate Figeac Aero with me personally. But the more we progress as time goes by, the more the performance of the men and women puts my own performance into perspective. And it's above all the performance of a group of almost 4,000 people, spread over 3 continents, which makes Figeac Aero successful today, and which will make Figeac Aero successful tomorrow.